Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Becoming Resilient podcast, Conversations with a Cancer Conqueror. This is Patricia Russell. I want to thank you for joining me. And I want to thank you if this is your first time listening in. I hope that you would share this podcast and, give us some feedback. We'd love to hear from you. But I wanted to do this podcast, if you're here for the first time, because this is a very important month. And the topic that we're going to talk about today is quite important and dear to my heart. The reason why I wanted to do this podcast is because I promised the Lord that as He brought me through this cancer journey that I had gone through in 2003 and 2016, that I would use my voice for Him. And so because I know my mission and my purpose is to encourage, to edify, and to educate, empower people, I wanted to use this platform and use my voice in this manner to encourage you. We're going to talk a little bit today about a very important topic. It is November, whatever time that you're listening, whatever year you're listening to this podcast. And November has become known as Movember month. What does that mean? Well, Movember is time where men's health is being supported, where there's a voice given to help the community become aware of issues that men deal with, be it prostate cancer, be it mental health issues, be it testicular health issues. And so I wanted to devote about 2 episodes to the subject of prostate cancer. Why? Because I've become a little bit more intimate and aware with the topic because of relatives in my immediate family over the last couple of years. Now, sometimes we have used that word prostate, and some of us have said prostrate, but it is actually prostate. And you may be wondering what is so big about a man's prostate? Well, I am going to help you out a little bit with that. There are certain individuals in my family that have told me that if you want an answer, we go to a certain place. I'm not going to call it out here, but I am going to tell you that prostate cancer is very much rising in the community, and it is a disease in which malignant cancer cells form in the tissues of the prostate. The prostate, what is that? What is that part of a man's body? Is a gland in the male reproductive system. It lies just below the bladder, the organ that collects and empties your urine. I think you know what your bladder is. And in front of the rectum, the lower part of the intestine. So that is what a prostate is. That is what prostate cancer is, if you did not know that before. Because guess what? We can't know everything about everything. So, and that is why this podcast is here to inform a little bit, to encourage you a little bit, to educate you a little bit. Now, being a Black woman, yes, there are Black men in my life. And in the coming up episode, I'm going to be interviewing one, maybe 2 of those individuals. Why are Black men a higher risk of prostate cancer? There are many reasons. There are a few, and this is from research that I've done and from an article that I found that I'm going to share some of this information with you. If you have somebody in your life who has been diagnosed with this, the same principles that I share with you about breast cancer, so you've been diagnosed now, what you can share with that individual. And if you would like to get a copy of that PDF, just sign up. Get on my mailing list. I'll send that out to you. Don't worry, I'm not going to hound you because I don't have time to hound you with emails, but I would like to get you on my mailing list, because if you know anything about social media, you don't own social media. That little address that you own, you don't totally own it. So if you'd like to stay in touch with me, which I would love for you to stay in touch with me so that I can inform you of things that are happening, and let you know of offers that are taking place, you can sign up and get those, that PDF. Black men are at a higher risk of prostate cancer, and this is what this article shares. It says scientists have come a step closer to understanding why Black men are twice as likely to be diagnosed with prostate cancer as other men. And this comes from the Movember funded research website. There's been a major new study by a team of international researchers that has revealed that Black men are more likely than white or Asian men to have a range of genetic changes that increase their risk of getting the disease. The scientists who were the team that was led by a group of scientists at the University of Southern California in the U.S., and the Institute of Cancer Research in London, England, analyzed the genetics of 200,000 men. Guys, 200,000 men were analyzed. And I want to just go to that point, go right there to something that I said in the last episode, that while we're trying to find a cure for these illnesses, you can play a part in finding that cure, that if you have been diagnosed or if there's a clinical trial going on, that you can be a part of it. Now, I'm not talking about some wacky trial where it's, they're paying you all these thousands of dollars to inject with these whole viral crazy medications. But what I am saying is part of finding the cure and part of finding better treatments is by us actually participating. I know about things that happened in the past. You get to check it out and research and see whether this would be applicable for you if there is a trial that comes up. So that said, 200,000 brave men. Their genetics, okay, so they didn't even have to inject anything. Their genetics were analyzed. And they were able to identify, listen to this, 86 new genetic changes that are associated with the disease, bringing the total number of genetic changes that influence the risk of prostate cancer to 269. I'm going to read that again. After doing the research, the total number of genetic changes that influence the risk of prostate cancer, 269 is what they found. Testing for these genetic changes could pick out men who might benefit from earlier and more regular screening. And that is a very important thing for me to pull up and to bring out to you, that earlier and regular screening is important. I state the same for breast cancer. I state the same for any kind of cancer. Anything that is found earlier can be treated better and safer. Many times people are diagnosed with illnesses at a later date, and many times it's because they have ignored the warning signs, or they've ignored issues that they are experiencing in their body. How many of you have felt, your body's not at its optimum, you feel a little worn down, but you ignore it and you keep pushing your body and keep pushing your body, and you start getting the sniffles, and then you start getting aches, and then you start getting a headache, until you realize that you've got a full-blown sickness, full-blown flu, which means that you end up being crashing in bed, have to be medicated or pampered and treated and whatever. Ladies and gentlemen, it is so important for us to listen to the signs that our body is telling us. One of the things that I learned important years ago was our waistline, that, it's not just to be curvaceous and to wear clothes well, but if your waistline is hitting a certain amount of inches, over a certain amount, that could be a sign, and that could be a symptom, believe it or not, of something else, about other issues. And one of the most the most often repeated techniques or tricks or suggestions from your clinician will be to lose weight around that area. So I just want to share a couple of other things that a professor stated that prostate cancer incidence differs across racial and ethnic groups, and it is higher in men of African ancestry and lower in Asian men compared with men of European ancestry. You get that? Okay, so he's basically saying that they are finding out that they have been finding out in their research that men from an African ancestry, that's all of us who are people of color, that are Black, that are from the West Indian, that from the islands, anybody that's from African descent are likely higher to be diagnosed. The genetic factors underlie racial and ethnic differences in the incidence of prostate cancer. I'll say it again. Genetic factors underlie racial and ethnic differences in the incidence of prostate cancer. Now, that is a quote from a scientist. I'm going to say this again because I always say it, that even though there are scientific measures and they say that genetics play a part, it is not always conclusive. I'm not contradicting what's been shared, but it's not always conclusive that that is the reason why you have been diagnosed with that particular cancer. Why do I say that? And why can I say that? Because I did do genetic testing, because my mother did do genetic testing, and they could not completely authoritatively conclude that our genetics played a role in our cancer diagnosis. Interesting, huh? So it's information. And so I'm always saying you get the information, you examine it. So it's so that we don't become fearful, because if you have relatives in your family that have had it, it can cause a level of fear and anxiety that you don't want to entertain. Okay. And we do not want to entertain fear, because fear causes stress. It's part of the stress load. And we want to eliminate as much stress load from our bodies and from our minds and from our spirits, because we don't want to develop anything else. I'm going to share a little bit more. The article goes on to say our findings greatly improve our understanding of genetic risk in men of African ancestry and could help guide and transform screening strategies so that prostate cancer in men at high risk can be caught as early as possible. Once again, early detection. Once again, the findings that they have been tackling can help them transform screening strategies, which means it can help them change or adjust the way that they are screening men for prostate cancer. Because we all know that we don't all look alike. We don't all behave alike. So one strategy for screening every individual, every man or every woman is not going to work. There are some things that may need to be tweaked. It's just like your children. You might have 2, 3, 4, 5 children, but each one of them are different. They all don't wear the same shoe size. They're all not going to be skilled at English or math because they're different. And so just want to make that comparison and that example, because there's a tendency. Let me give you just a common tendency. Because you're a Black young man and you're 6'2", you must play basketball, or you must be good at basketball, or you must be really good at sports. How many times has a Black man been approached who is 6'2", who might be 16, 17, and that young man has no interest in basketball? You cannot paint us and paint all of them with the same brush. So that's a little bit of a summary of what that article is about. So Movember, this month of November is to bring awareness to men's health. Some people are fundraising to help support men who are going through prostate cancer, who may have just been diagnosed, and all sorts of things. And I'm really thankful for the support and for the awareness that is being made about prostate cancer. It is an illness that can be resolved. There are solutions that they are coming up with techniques and with treatments for. And I am familiar with a few men who have gone through treatment, who have had surgery, who have come through and who are living their best life. And some of them are having, they're struggling with the healing process, but they're yet here. And I want to encourage you this month. I want to encourage you, if you are out there and you have been diagnosed with prostate cancer, I want to help you and just encourage you with this thought that your diagnosis does not determine your prognosis. So you may have been diagnosed, but the prognosis does not have to be a bad one. It doesn't have to be a negative one, that you can get better, that you can heal, and that you will come through. I do believe that with all of my heart. Why? Because I have interacted with several men who have gone through the experience. Prostate cancer in the Black community is growing. And on the next episode, I will be sharing some of the symptoms or some of the reasons for prostate cancer, and so that you can become aware, so that you can be observant, so that you can take note of them, and so that you can be there if somebody decides they want to confide in you. So become resilient, to be determined to get that PSA checked. But can I just give you one simple advice? And I'll probably repeat it again. But just because your PSA might be at a certain number, don't get frightened, don't get overwhelmed, and don't rush to have surgery done. I'm telling you this from somebody's experience, from the communication that I have had with men. There are ways to look at this. Again, please do not take anything that I say as it's coming from a medical practitioner, because I am not a medical practitioner, but I have done some research. I continue to do research, and I'm just sharing from what I know. So we're going to call that a wrap. I just want to encourage you, as you go through this month, that you support and look out for those who are going through the struggle, that you encourage them, speak life to them. It's not a joke. The prostate is a very sensitive area, so men don't talk about it. They're opening up a little bit more. And we in the West Indian African community, Canadian Black, American Black, we need to share what we know and support our men to come forward, because there are many men that have been in their family and have struggled with this, have kept it a secret, because there's a saying, what happens at home stays at home. But if you don't share what happens at home, somebody in your very home could also be suffering from the very same challenge. So we're going to call it a wrap. If you're going through anything that is causing you to be overwhelmed, keep your head up, hold on to hope, and know that God sees you, He hears you, He loves you. And whatever you're going through is going to make you stronger. It is going to make you more resilient. And I want to encourage you to be persistent, because you're going to make it. Thanks for joining me on this podcast. I hope that you do share it with somebody. If you are listening to this audio, you can encourage somebody to take a listen and a look on YouTube, subscribe to this channel, and share this with somebody. If there is a topic that you want me to address, we're going to be talking a little bit more about music as we get closer to Christmas. There is going to be some music. I'm going to find a way to make this recording on here as best of the ability with some Christmas cheer. So thanks for being with me. Have a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. Know that you're becoming stronger and resilient.